It's just something that I live. Hey, it's just something that I live that this world don't live. It's just something that I feel that this world don't feel. I gotta keep it real. J.E. Get 'em.
Welcome to another episode of Let Bob Podcast. It's your boy Ant. Got my main man Dave with us yet again. Today, we got a special guest for you. We're doing this particular episode on how faith inspires entrepreneurship in the Black community. We have none other than Pastor Watley. He's a senior pastor of Kingdom Fellowship AME Church in Maryland. He's here to talk to us about the journey of entrepreneurship, and we're going to get some advice from him.
Sure. Well, listen, thanks so much for having me on, and I'm excited to share the space. If you really think about it, churches and pastors are entrepreneurs. We run small businesses. We're in the business of saving souls and changing lives and community. But just like every other business, we have to make sure that we are minding our P's and Q's, doing things in order, and making sure that we are always making sure that we're in line with our mission. And so one of the things that we try to train and teach our people is to be successful in any area, you need faith. You need faith in yourself. You have to have confidence that when you're making application, when you're striking out to a new market, that you're going to do it. Now, here's the thing. How do you have faith in yourself if you know yourself and you know that you're flawed, you're weak, you have challenges? You have to have faith in something other than, something bigger than, something beyond yourself. And that's why we believe that when you align your faith in God with your faith in terms of your purpose and what you're doing in terms of your business, or whether you're operating a nonprofit, whatever it is you're called to do, that when you align like that, that's when you really can actualize the native potential that's on the inside of you. So one of the things that we've been able to do as a congregation, we have about 5,000 members in Calverton, Maryland, right outside of D.C., is we've been able to not simply bring souls into the kingdom, we've also been able to empower many persons in our community. So now do we just created a new organization called the Kingdom Community Development Global Corporation. What that does is it feeds thousands of persons every week. In order for that to work, we have to actually recruit hundreds of persons to serve on a weekly basis. We're a nonprofit. I can't afford to pay everybody on payroll, which means I then have to have a value proposition that helps people to understand that the investment of your time, your energy, and your effort is well worth it because you're accomplishing a higher mission. Well, John Maxwell, who's a famous leadership guru, talks about the fact that nonprofit leadership is probably the hardest test of leadership, because if you're on payroll, I can fire you, I can promote you, I can incentivize you. But if I don't have a payroll, that means that I've got to find something else to give you that makes you feel like your effort is worthwhile. And so we're extremely proud of all of our persons who are serving to make the change in lives of people that are all around this area. And we believe that as people continue to find their purpose, they'll find their place in life.
Awesome. I think when you think about ministry, I think people don't understand how aligned it is with entrepreneurship in itself, right? Because I'm listening to you and how you're having to lead. You sound just like a person who's building as an entrepreneur, that same spirit. And so the question would be like, how did faith play a role in your journey up to this point?
Sure. And so that's a great question. So historically, we know that most pastors in the Black church have had to be entrepreneurs. Yes. So it's not an accident that most pastors, especially in the South, they'll be both the pastor of the church, they'll also may be the funeral home director, or they may own a barber shop or something else, because it's the same skill set. They're just being applied in different areas. I've had the opportunity to meet several CEOs of Fortune 500 and even 100 companies. One of them said, because he owns Einstein Bagels, he owns Ancestry.com. I said, and he started a global ministry of digital information. I said, now how do you get 3 different businesses like that? He said to me, 80% of all businesses are the same. Yes. When you figure out the 20% that's different, you got a new business. So my faith journey was very simple. I went to Howard University in undergrad, and I was on my way to law school, was going to make some money and live my happy life. And I was actually in the Republic of South Africa in a very impoverished place called Mabopane outside of Pretoria. It was very, very impoverished. And there's a statement that says, in America, we believe in God. In Africa, we depend on God. And I saw faith at a whole different level. And I heard for the first time clearly God say, you're not going to be happy until you do what I told you to do. I knew I was called up until then, but I was just, like I said, trying to go to law school. I stopped applying to law school. I started applying to seminary, and I haven't had a bad day since. So my approach for ministry is all about, like any other entrepreneur, creativity, about seeing opportunity where others have not and seizing upon it. And so at our church, one of the things that we are very committed to is not trying to depend the entire ministry just on what comes into the offering plate. So several years ago, the Lord opened up an opportunity for us to purchase a 125,000 square foot office tower. And so we did that. The FDA, the U.S. FDA is our largest tenant. They have 80,000 square feet in there. We did a $10 million renovation of that building, and then we finished renting it all out to the glory of God. So it's now 100% leased. And now that's passive income that comes to the church that then allows us to do more ministry without, again, having to depend solely on the offering. And so one of the things we choose to try to teach people is you don't ever discount what God can do when you open yourself up to new possibilities. That means you can't be stuck in tradition. You can't be stuck in what you've seen other people do. You've got to push the envelope and see what all of this God can do through you.
So that's you dive into a really good point. So one of our pillars at Let Bob is ownership, right? We believe ownership is the key to one of the keys to bridging the wealth gap, right? And so to your point, by you all stepping outside the box and looking for opportunities to own, now you create a stream of income that's circulating within, right? And so my next question would be, like, how does that affect you as a leader when you're building leaders too, right? How does the church and faith play a role in, like, getting new leaders to come and see this type of vision and this shift of mindset into ownership?
Sure. Well, leaders recognize leadership. And so what's really interesting is a lot of the testimonies that come from our leaders is not just what God has done, but how excited they are about the leadership, the organization they see in their church. They're proud that they see a professional church that provides services at a high level, so that the expectation is, if I go to a restaurant, there's going to be somebody there to greet me. There's going to be good food. Everything's going to be organized. That's the same expectation, whether people realize it or not, they come to church with. They expect to have a professional, well-organized experience. And so we're very intentional about making sure that we provide for people a standard of leadership. Because to your point, ownership really it's not always just about the bottom line and income.
Right.
It often is more about one feeling fulfilled and satisfied. The difference, and we know this statistically, between somebody who owns their house and rents a house is that someone has a higher sense of self and self-esteem who owns their home. Now, you're still making payments every month, but when you know this payment is really going back to me, it's building equity, it's setting me up for legacy in the future, and I can leverage this for other opportunities. It changes the way you pay that note, right? And it changes the way you feel after you've paid that note. It changes the way you keep up the property because it's yours and not somebody else's. And so when it's a business that's yours, it gives you a different sense of self. And sometimes we too narrowly define business just by the bottom line. But the benefit and blessing of being an owner really goes far beyond just what's on the balance sheet.
And also, I'm looking here, they say you have a ministry called Financial Peace. And for me, when I think about financial peace, like in our community, I believe that, like, the terminology is excellent, because if you obtain financial peace, they're just saying, like, you have peace in life. Because we in our community, like, finance is so important, and a lot of people just don't, like, I feel like they don't dedicate enough time. And I think that's great that you are balancing, bringing in faith, but also teaching them, hey, you need this financial on the other end. So can you speak to us a little bit about your financial peace?
Sure, absolutely. So my first financial training came from my father and my parents, who were very intentional about organizing their resources. And so I learned firsthand that money comes and it will go. That's why it's called currency. And so you have to be intentional about training yourself and educating yourself as to how to manage money. How many times do we see somebody go to the NBA, the NFL, blow up as an artist, and all of a sudden, next thing you know, they're on the Chitlin circuit. They're trying to make it day by day, right? It's not because they didn't make the money, but money doesn't come with directions. And so one of the things we're committed to at our church is to make sure that we're providing for people holistic ministry. And that means providing for people management training as to how to deal with their money. The truth of the matter is our church is very well educated. We have 76% undergraduate degrees, 44% graduate degrees. And so it's a very well educated congregation, but education has nothing to do with knowing how to manage your money.
Zero.
Yeah. So, and in fact, when you have more money, you have to be that much more diligent of how to manage it, because everybody's making plans for your money. That's why we know that on social media, they track your spending, they track your behavior, and the algorithm knows exactly what to put in front of you at the exact right time to get you to push a button to get your money. So literally, there are persons who are full-time employed getting your money out of your pocket, which means you have to put some major time in keeping your money in your pocket and growing it. And so because we understand the principles of sound money management, personal finance, we wanted to put together a program that would allow people. We've had a testimony of persons who've paid off tens and tens and tens of thousands of dollars in debt, which then solidifies their financial framework for their future. Nobody wants to be in debt. And the Bible says that the borrower is slave to the lender. That literally means as long as I owe you, you can tell me how high to jump and when to jump. And so by getting debt off of their backs and off of our backs, we feel like we're literally breaking a financial stronghold that strangles our people.
It's amazing because they're so aligned. What you're doing is so aligned with why Let Bob exists. Just listening and hearing another Black-owned business speak to exactly what we're trying to do. Right? We want to get this message out. It's just so much admiration to know that you're focusing on the core thing that makes it all work, which is finance. Right? If you can, to your point, you can have unlimited money coming in, but if you don't know how to manage it, it's just like you don't have any money coming in. And in my path, and I'm college educated, right? So high school, 4 years of undergrad, we didn't learn much about finance. Nobody talked about it. You go, you get your first job, you make this money. The way I grew up, my parents, we didn't talk money in the household. The community I came from, the only thing that was enforced, you have to work. I come from a community of workers, but nobody ever sat you down and told you what to do with the money after you made it, or we were told to, put the money in the mattress, in this attitude, but not a sound baseline of how to manage your money and what it can do for you so that you can have financial peace and this financial freedom, right? The interesting thing I'd like to hear from you is, you are a visionary. Just listening to you, I know you're a visionary and hearing what you've already achieved. A lot of times with visionaries, you have the vision in here, but the thing about a vision, no one can see it, right? So you have to have followers that believe in that vision. Can you talk to us? What are some of the challenges or some of the, pros and cons of how you maneuvered to getting people to follow your vision when it wasn't a thing, right?
Sure, absolutely. Great question. Yeah. So the Bible says in the book of Daniel actually says, I alone saw the vision and the people trembled. When you're a visionary, you see it. God shows it to you, but everyone doesn't see what you see, which means it's your assignment to then translate what you've seen, the vision that's been cast before you. You have to then cast it to others so they can catch it and run with it. Yeah. So one of the things I try to teach at the church is that people are inspired by vision, but they are kept by organization. So if I have a great vision, wonderful, everybody gets all excited. But then I need to know, how realistic is this? Do you have a plan that gets me from where we are to where you're talking about going? And so the more organized I am, the more systematic I am in terms of laying out a plan, then it's credible. Then I see my next step. So if you say, listen, I want to do business with you, then my expectation is you're going to walk in and you have a plan already laid out. Every question I'm going to think of, you've already thought of, and you're answering it in your presentation. So that now the credibility, you're not walking in with money, you're coming for me to money, but now that you have credibility, money's the smallest thing.
Correct.
The question is, do I have confidence that your vision is not only inspirational, but it's achievable? Yeah. And so one of the things that we do at the church is we have a great team, staff. They're paid and non-paid, as I said. We can't afford to pay everybody that needs to work, but we treat everybody the same. First of all, we recognize that serving in the Lord's church is a blessing and it's a privilege. Yes, so you actually have to apply to serve even as a volunteer because it's a privilege. And the application process says, guess what? We have standards. right? You don't just come up in here and, hey, I feel like it, I'm going to be here. And if not, I was tired because I'm a volunteer. So we talk more about serving than volunteering, because volunteering sounds like if I feel like it, I can. If I don't, that's on y'all. Yeah. No, so by having an application, that's organization. By having an application, that raises the standard. So without even speaking about my theory, you've experienced my practice of leadership, right? And so now you're going to be inspired to be more accountable.
And I like what you said about planning, organized, because that's me. They'll tell you, that's me 100%. I feel like if I have a plan and I'm organized, things can go extremely well, or we have a blueprint at least. So therefore, now if we kind of go off the roadmap, it's like, hey, we're supposed to be at point 3, but now we're at point 1. So therefore, you can readjust, bring your team back together, say, hey, team, we need to do X, Y, Z. So I think that's really dope. And another thing I want to ask you about is the Kingdom Network. You know, you got a summit coming up. So based upon that, I bet you got that planned out, right?
So we're so excited about it. November 15th through the 17th, we're hosting our first Kingdom Leadership Summit. It's really going to be an opportunity for us to gather again leaders throughout the church, pastors and church leaders and persons who want to grow in their leadership. We're going to be coming to our campus. We just opened up this new Kingdom Worship Center in Calverton, Maryland. It was a $45 million project that we began and finished during the pandemic.
Wow, that's amazing.
And so the Lord's been great, and we've gotten so many requests from folks like, hey, we want to know the secret sauce. We want to know how you guys did it. And my thing is, listen, God has given me favor to get into a lot of rooms, and I want to keep the door open and bring somebody else to the table so they can learn what I've learned. And one of the things we're going to be talking about in the Kingdom Leadership Summit is, listen, don't allow labels to intimidate you away from the vision that God has given you, right? So you've heard the term before, megachurch. You'll never hear me use the term because I don't believe in it for a couple of reasons. First of all, a mega church is supposed to be a church that has 2,000 members on a week, right? Well, like Beyonce's worst album on YouTube got 2 billion views, right? So I don't get to use the word mega if she got 2 billion anything, right? Secondarily, though, we have 5,000 members. You heard me say that, but there's more than 1 million black people in the DMV, right? The DC Metro, Maryland, Virginia area. So, given the opportunity, I'm really a storefront church because there's more than 1 million black people out here. Now, if you're in a small town that only has maybe 15 to 20,000 black folks and you have 50 members, you actually have percentage more than I do. So you're probably the mega church than I am. So by helping people to reimagine and reframe their situation, you're able to see new opportunities where before all you saw was obstacles. That's the value of leadership. Because listen, when this podcast is over, somebody's going to go back to the same set of issues they had before they started listening. The difference is, did they hear something? Did they learn something that allows them to see with new eyes the same situation they were looking at before? So I have 3 master's degrees in leadership, right? And after I paid for each one, I was like, okay, that's a lot of money I put out. What did I get? Because there was nothing in my hand. Yeah. I didn't realize, though, my mind, my thinking had shifted. I started talking to business guys like you guys, and they were like, you sure you're a preacher? Because you talk like a business guy. Well, I did go to Georgetown Business School, but it wasn't just learning the language, it was learning a different way to think. And that's what this Leadership Summit is all about. So people can go to kingdom.global, www.kingdom.global, and sign up. You can be in person, you can be online. I'm encouraging everybody to check it out. I promise it's going to make an investment in you that's going to bring a big return.
No, you said something huge, man. Your thinking drives your action, right? And I think we're all, black men, so we know what type of image they put out in social media and just in the marketplace in general about us, right? And so when you're maneuvering through the minutia of all that, it takes a really strong mentality to continue to fight. And like you said, the labels, it's almost... So unlike Dave and unlike you, I'm not as much of a planner. So I try to put structure around me to help me in that manner. But what I look at is I don't really care about the labels because I know this is God's work that I'm doing as well, right? And you said that early on. You said God chose you to do what you're doing. And I think that helps people when they understand they're doing what God made them to do. And so the labels don't matter. See, I answer to a higher calling. So we're doing this podcast. We've never done a podcast before. We just,
never
guiding it, right? But it was a part of God's plan. So that's why we're here. And so that's more of my mentality around trying to understand my way of thinking in the areas where I'm weak, structure myself with team members to protect me, and where I'm strong, provide guidance and vision. And that's what I'm just soaking up you as you're talking.
Absolutely.
about.
Well, listen, it's all about teams. A great pastor, his name is Bishop John Bryant, made this statement. He said, if you can accomplish your vision by yourself, your vision is too small. So whenever I go to come up with an idea, the first thing is the idea. The second thing is who I'm going to get to do it. Right? Because I don't have enough hours in the day to do everything that needs to get done. And so again, we have staff, we have volunteers, and then we have organization and accountability all built into the system so that we have a team of folks that are working together and we have fun. We run hard. We got smart people, and we have people who are committed and have the same vision. Listen, I can tell you right now, the Bible says, how can two walk together unless they agree? If you get connected with people who don't have the same values, don't have the same faith, I don't care how much money they have, how much resources they have, it can be transactional. You don't have to trust them. You can trust a contract, but you're going to need a contract because their values are going to come out, particularly in business. It doesn't take a long time. I've seen it time and time again. And so one of the things you're sharing about, as Black men in this role, as we're trying to learn and grow, I was talking to a mentee yesterday and I said, man, I saw you on social. Man, I saw you out there on the street, like just hanging. He's, well, I was trying to witness. You weren't trying to witness out there. I mean, you getting some feed and just hanging out, with your folk. You kicking it, And I said, listen, man, let me ask you a question. Who, that was on that corner with you went to your schools? You went to Howard, you went to great graduate school. Who was out there with you? Well, I ain't trying to act like I'm better. It has nothing to do with being better. I said, Jay-Z on that corner no more, right? And the guys who tried to go back, we saw a lot of them didn't make it back out, right? So it's not about you thinking you're better. You don't look down on people, so you don't have anything to justify, but you have to give yourself permission to let go of who you've been so you can become who God is trying to make you to be. You can't do both.
Correct.
Right?
No, you valid, man. And being someone with access to someone like yourself, access to a mentor. Like I hear, so one common denominator with all successful people, they are either a mentor, have graduated to a mentor, or they have a mentor. Because the importance of, in my opinion, the importance of experience, especially experience by way of wisdom, someone who's already traveled the journey that you're trying to achieve, it's very impactful in anything you're trying to accomplish. But I think going back to what you said earlier, the labels that come with, especially Black men, right? So you go and you get educated. You go to Howard, or you go, in my case, to the best Black university is FAMU.
Bless your heart.
Third best, arguably.
But so you leave your circle of people you were friends with beforehand, and then you come back, and now he better than us now. So you have to deal with that mentality wise. And to your point, it's not healthy because you have more to lose at this point. Not that you're better, you just have much more to lose. That for me in my journey was very tough. That was a very hard crossover because these are the people that I grew up with too. And like, I want to be around them, but if you look in the room, who has all to lose if something goes wrong? And so I think in that journey, it's been really challenging. It's interesting that I would like to know, as a minister, I would assume that would be twice as hard, because on one side, the business aspect of things, but on the other side, faith is always challenged because of the labels they put out in the marketplace, right? So you're having to deal with it both ways. One is he thinks he's smarter, and then the other is, well, he's goody two shoes because he's in the church. Like, how does that experience work?
Sure, and that's why, great question. That's why you have to know who you are in God.
Yeah.
I say it all the time to freshmen going to any school, Howard or any of the lesser schools, which is, which is shots fired, which is basically, if you don't know who you are before you go on campus, there's going to be enough culture on campus to redefine you and give you an identity. And I saw it happen. Y'all saw it happen in school. Yeah. Folks came in there, got turned out, and
I was a part of it.
Yeah. And so either they, joined a fraternity or sorority, or, got into the weed club, or whoever it was, they got into something and never really got out of it. Right. That doesn't change even after undergrad, or they never went to school. It's part of life. And so as a minister, one of the reasons I didn't want to accept my call, I'm a third generation preacher. And I knew that people act like there's two different Bibles, one for the preacher and one for everybody else.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm not trying to. And matter of fact, when I married my wife, I told her, listen, marrying a preacher is like marrying a celebrity without the money or the power. Like, everyone's going to look at you, judge you, have something to say about you. And you just have to be okay with who you are, what God has called you to do, and be good with that, because you're never going to please people. Part of the challenge of leadership is recognizing that at the end of the day, you may have to stand on your own. That's why you have to have a faith relationship. So if you're a CEO, if you're a pastor, if you're just a parent, you have to know that what you've done is going to be sufficient, and you don't answer to other people.
Yeah, that's deep, because like you say, just going back to like when you move into a new situation, like a freshman in college, right? You're going to have everyone coming at you from every different angle, trying to persuade you to come, hey, let's do this, do that, do that. And you need faith, because like you say, if you don't have any boundaries, these takers are going to do what?
They're going to take.
They're going to take. And that's real important.
Yeah. Nah, takers, they're definitely going to take, because if you don't look at when you're around on that corner and when you're with those guys or whatever, they're not going to look at it. In fact, it's so crazy in our community. Most times, to your point, when you do go back, you don't make it out. Like R.P. Young Dolph. I don't know if you're familiar with that story, but he's at home. Like, in my opinion, that should be the last place something should happen to you. They should be trying to protect you. So, like our last guest, Kobe, was saying about me, like, how do we get behind you and protect you when you are a light of what can be achieved, for us, right? And so that's why Let Bob is so important, man. Like, for us, it's just like, how do we get more people like you highlighted, right? So why is it not that you are being talked about nationally on a frequent basis? A young man, a young black man making this type of impact to other black families and building this empire. Never hear about it. But we know who got drafted last week, or we know who the hot college ball player is. And then all this stuff is designed to keep us thinking that we can't and keep us divided.
Yeah. And part of that is strategic as well.
Yeah.
So, there are guys, and I'm not mad, and there are guys who live their lives on social media and live for social and have built great platforms. Yeah. And that's great. They have hundreds of thousands of followers. I've chosen to make my energy and make my investment in other places.
Right.
In business, oftentimes you'll see folks who are plenty flashy, right? And there's not much behind the flash.
Right.
And then I've met billionaires who are driving Toyota Priuses.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I get it.
Yeah.
So what I've learned over time, when I was younger, I thought, oh, okay, so it's all about looking powerful, important, prosperity. But the longer I've lived, the more I've discovered the folks who really have power, the folks who really have money, the folks who really have influence, they don't advertise.
Right.
You want to play it low because you don't want to take on undue attention. Right? Because, okay, so I got the latest whatever, and I got 22s, and they're spinning there, and a chrome kit. Great, wonderful. So now everybody is looking at you.
The vultures are looking.
Right. Yeah. And so now, right, we're born looking like our parents, we died look like our choices, right? Yeah. So you chose to flash, and now you get some of the burn that comes with it. So that's one of the things we're trying to do at the Leadership Summit. We're looking at truly trying to provide a platform for people to come and learn and to excel in their leadership. So once again, Kingdom Leadership Summit, November 15th through the 17th, welcoming everybody to be with us in person or online.
Right. Well, man, it's been a pleasure. The knowledge, the wisdom, and just the confirmation of just this is where we're all supposed to be. We wish you much more success in your journey, and we just appreciate it. So it's been another episode of the Let Bob podcast. Me, Ant, Dave. Hey, we'll catch y'all next go round.
It's a wrap. Peace.
Peace.
I gotta keep it real. J.E. Get 'em.